The crunch of gravel under my tires hit like a warning shot in the dead quiet of midnight. I killed the headlights blocks back, coasting the last stretch to Riley's place, heart slamming against my ribs. I can't stay with him, I whispered to the dark dashboard, the words tasting like dust and finality. The road behind me stretched empty in the rear view, but every shadow felt like his truck lurking, headlights piercing the night if he figured out where I'd run. No time to second guess. I grabbed my bag, stepped into the chill air that bit at my skin like winter's first edge, and crossed the yard. My knock barely sounded. The door cracked open, Riley's face pale in the porch light, eyes wide with that mix of shock and something deeper. We locked gazes, no words, just the weight of years unspoken. I slipped inside, the door shutting soft behind me, sealing us in the thick silence. The spare room smelled like fresh linen and faint pine from the fields outside, a far cry from the stale air back home. My hands shook as I unzipped the bag, pulling out a few clothes, the divorce papers I'd printed that afternoon, tucked in the side pocket like a loaded gun. Riley hovered in the doorway, her flannel shirt rumpled from sleep, hair falling loose over one shoulder. "Tea," she murmured, voice low, mindful of the creaky house and the neighbors who slept too light in this town. We moved to the kitchen, steps careful on the worn linoleum. The kettle whistled soft, steam curling up like secrets, finally breaking free. I sank into a chair at the table, the wood cool under my palms, and let the words spill. Mark's been suspicious for weeks. The arguments, the way he watches me like I'm already gone, but tonight, he grabbed my arm hard, said if I left I'd regret it. I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. Riley slid a mug across, her fingers brushing mine. Just a graze, but it sent a spark up my arm, stirring memories I'd buried deep. That scent of hers, clean soap mixed with earth from the garden, hit me then. It pulled me back to last summer's county fair, years ago now. We'd met there by chance, both volunteering at the bake sale booth under the sagging tent. She was laughing with the kids over sticky cinnamon rolls, her hands dusted in flour, and I caught myself staring too long. Our eyes met across the table and something shifted. The air thickened, like before a storm rolls in over the ridges. We talked that day about nothing and everything, the drought ruining the hay crop, how the town's gossip mill ground finer than any thresher. But underneath, it was there, that pull, unspoken but heavy as a saddle on bareback. Now, sitting here with mugs steaming between us, the weight pressed harder. "You can stay as long as you need," Riley said, her voice steady but eyes flicking to the window, checking the dark yard. "But this town's got eyes everywhere. Church ladies, the feed store crowd. They talk. We keep it quiet. Boundaries clear." I nodded, sipping the tea, the heat grounding me. Boundaries. The word tasted bitter. How do you draw lines when the lines you've lived by your whole life are the ones choking you? The conversation drifted to logistics. Me crashing here a few nights, then figuring out the apartment above the diner, maybe. But my mind kept circling back to him, to the way his truck's engine roared in my dreams, headlights sweeping the road like searchlights. What if he came looking? This place wasn't far enough. Nothing in a county this small ever was. Riley leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I felt it too, you know, that pull we ignore. Back at the fair, I thought it was just the heat making me dizzy. But it's been there, hasn't it? Simmering." I met her gaze, the kitchen lamp casting shadows that softened her features. Yeah, it had, suppressed under layers of shoulds and wouldn'ts, in a place where folks still whispered about the spinster down the road who never married. Fear clawed up. Discovery meant more than stares. It meant isolation, family turning away, the kind of quiet exile that hollowed you out like wind on canyon walls. Mark finding out? That could turn ugly fast, his temper like dry lightning. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight, each second stretching. "We should talk," I said finally, voice barely above the hum of the fridge. "All night if we have to. Get it out." Riley's hand covered mine then, warm and sure, and the room felt smaller, the air charged. No pulling back now. The night stretched ahead, full of words we should have said years ago, and the road behind me faded just a little in the weight of her touch. The clock's hands crept past 1, the kitchen growing heavier with the weight of unsaid things. I pulled my hand back slow from under Riley's, not because I wanted to, but because the touch lingered too long, like dew on grass that sticks and soaks through. I've been hiding so much of myself, I said, the words tumbling out rough, like gravel under boots. Every day, pretending with Mark, smiling at church suppers, nodding along to the same old talks about kids and fences and keeping the place running. It wears you down, you know, like hauling hay bales in July heat, one after another, until your back screams, and you wonder why you're even out there. Riley nodded, her mug cradled in both hands, steam fading now. The window above the sink framed the night outside, black as fresh-turned soil, and through it came the low chorus of crickets, rubbing wings like secrets in the grass. A coyote yipped far off, sharp and lonely, cutting the quiet. I get it, she murmured, her voice a thread in the dim. My folks, they expect the farm to pass to a son-in-law someday, someone to take the reins. I've dodged questions about why I'm still alone, why no ring after all these years. It's like walking a ridgeline in wind. One wrong step, and the whole family's looking at you different, whispering about what's wrong with the girl who won't. Settle. She reached for the sugar bowl then, her fingers grazing mine as she passed it over. Time stretched in that brush, electric as a live wire humming in the rain, our skin catching just enough to spark. I froze, breath held, the air between us thickening like fog rolling off the river at dawn. Neither of us moved right away, eyes locked on that small point of contact, the world narrowing to the warmth of her palm against my knuckles. I stirred the sugar in slow, the spoon clinking soft against porcelain, breaking the spell but not the pull. Tonight wasn't just another fight, I confessed, voice dropping lower, the words heavy as wet earth after a downpour. We were at the diner after his shift at the mill. He started in about the bills, how I wasn't pulling my weight, how a wife should know her place. I pushed back, said I was tired of folding myself into his shape. He slammed his fist on the table, hard enough the salt shaker jumped. Folks turned, but he leaned in close, breath hot on my face, and said, You think you can do better? Go on, try, but don't come crawling back. I waited till he stormed out, paid the check with shaking hands, and drove straight here. No plan, just this. Riley's face tightened, shadows playing across her jaw in the low light from the bulb overhead. The crickets swelled outside, a steady hum underscoring the night, punctuated by the distant rumble of thunder rolling in from the west, like the sky itself was holding its breath. That man's got temper like dry tinder, she said, setting her mug down with a thud that echoed my pulse. And this town, neighbors at the co-op, they'll side-eye you for less than leaving your husband. My aunt did the same, years back, packed up for the city, chasing some woman from the library. Family cut her off cold, said she shamed the bloodline. Now she's a ghost story around holiday tables, the one who chose wrong. We sat with that, the fear coiling tight in my chest, cold as creek water in spring. Judgment here wasn't just words. It was doors closing, invitations drying up, the slow starve of being unseen in plain sight. My family, Ma with her Bible verses, brothers with their rough jokes, they'd call it a phase, or worse, a sin worth praying over. And Mark? He'd spin it his way, paint me the villain to save face, his buddies at the bar nodding along like it was gospel. But then Riley chuckled, low and unexpected, cutting the dark, like a lantern flicking on. Remember that time at the fair, after the pie contest? I spilled flour all down my shirt, looked like I'd been rolling in a snowdrift. You handed me a napkin, all serious, but your eyes were laughing. I couldn't help it. A smile cracked through, and I laughed too, the sound rusty but real, easing the knot in my throat. Yeah, and you tried to brush it off, ended up smearing it worse, like a kid with finger paints. We traded stories then, small ones from county events and chance run-ins. The awkward dance, At the harvest festival where we both stepped on toes, the way we'd linger by the fence at branding time, talking steers while the real talk simmered underneath. The laughter faded, but our eyes held longer now, the kitchen lamp catching the flecks in hers, green like new leaves after rain. There was an invitation there, unspoken but clear as a path worn through the pasture, pulling me toward something I couldn't name yet, but felt in my bones. What if we didn't hide anymore? I asked, the question hanging fragile between us. Freedom out here. It's like chasing wind over the plains. You feel it, taste it, but grab too hard and it's gone. Safety's the fence keeping us in, but is it worth the wait? Riley leaned closer, her knee nudging mine under the table, steady as an anchor in choppy water. Maybe we test it, she said, voice firm but soft, like whispering to a skittish horse. Not all at once, just small steps. See if the ground holds. The thunder grumbled nearer, rain pattering the window now, and I nodded, the agreement settling warm in my chest, a quiet promise amid the storm brewing outside and in. We rose then, mugs rinsed in the sink with water running cold and quick. Riley nodded toward the living room, the couch waiting in the shadows beyond the archway, worn cushions promising a space closer, more unguarded. Let's keep talking there, she said, and I followed, the floorboards creaking underfoot like they approved. The living room wrapped around us like an old quilt, faded but warm, the couch sagging just enough to pull us closer without trying. We settled in side by side, legs stretched toward the coffee table scarred from years of boots and books. Riley tucked one foot under her knee brushing mine now, not accidental like in the kitchen, but steady, like she'd decided to claim the space between us. The lamp in the corner threw a soft glow, shadows dancing on the walls like memories stirring in the dust. I leaned back, the cushions giving way, and let the words come slow at first, then faster, like a creek swelling after rain. With Mark, it was never about wanting him, not really. From the start, I folded myself into what he needed. A helpmate for the farm, someone to cook and mend and keep the house from falling apart. But inside, there were parts of me I locked away, desires that didn't fit the picture. Nights when I'd lie awake, his snores rumbling beside me, and my mind would wander to softer things. Touches that lingered, eyes that held without demand. I'd push it down, tell myself it was just the loneliness of long winters, the way the wind howls through the eaves and makes you crave warmth you can't name. But it built up, year after year, like pressure in a fence post, cracking slow until one day it splinters. Riley listened, her face turned toward me, the line of her jaw sharp in the low light. Her knee pressed firmer against mine, a quiet anchor, and I didn't pull away. The contact grounded me. Skin to denim, warm through the fabric like sun on parched earth. I know that folding, she said, her voice low, threaded with the weight of her own hidden loads. My last real try at something was with Clara, from over in the next county about 5 years back. We met at a quilting bee. Nothing fancy, just women stitching scraps into patterns. She had this laugh that cut through the chatter, and one afternoon, after everyone left, we stayed behind, hands brushing over the same bolt of cloth. It turned into more stolen moments in her barn, whispers that felt like breathing for the first time. But fear got us. Her brother found a note. Nothing much, just meet at the creek. He confronted her, called it unnatural, said it had ruined the family name. She chose safety, ended it clean, moved to her cousins in Wyoming. I drove past her place for months after, the empty porch like a gut punch every time. Fear of that judgment, of being the town pariah, it ends things before they start. The room felt smaller now, the air thick with our stories, like humidity before a summer storm. Our knees stayed touching, the pressure building a rhythm, in and out with our breaths. I shifted closer, my thigh aligning with hers, the heat seeping through steady as a heartbeat under soil. I've dreamed of getting out, I said, staring at the ceiling beams, dark knots like eyes watching. Not forever, maybe, but far enough to breathe. Somewhere the ridges give way to open sky, no fences, marking every inch. A place where I could walk with someone, hand in hand, without scanning for trucks in the rear view. Build a life on my terms. Plant a garden that grows wild, not trimmed to someone else's grid. You ever think that? Leaving the dust behind, chasing horizons that don't loop back to the same old judgments? Riley's hand rested on the cushion between us, fingers curling slightly, and I felt the pull to cover it with mine. All the time, she admitted, her gaze drifting to the window where the rain had eased to a drizzle, tapping irregular on the pane. I'd head west, maybe Montana, where the land stretches endless and folks mind their own spreads. A cabin by a stream, horses in the corral, and no one asking why there's no man in the picture. We'd ride out at dawn, just the two of us, wind in our faces, no hiding the way we'd look at each other. But then, reality hits. The farm here, Ma's health fading, the roots that tangle deeper than you plan. Dreams like that, they tease, like mirages over hot asphalt, close enough to taste, but gone when you reach. Tears pricked then, hot and sudden, blurring the lamp's glow into halos. I blinked hard, but one slipped free, tracing warm down my cheek. So much time lost, I whispered, the ache blooming in my chest like bruise under ribs. Years pretending, smiling through suppers, burying what felt true under chores and church hymns. What if I'd seen it sooner? Acted on that pull at the fair, or the time we fixed the fence line. Together, sweat mixing in the heat? The lost years pressed down, heavy as sod after a plowing, the what-ifs piling like fallen timber. Riley's hand moved then, gentle on my arm, fingers wrapping around my elbow with a warmth that spread, lingering like embers in ash. She didn't pull away, just held there, thumb tracing a slow circle over my sleeve, the touch saying what words couldn't. I'm here. We've got the stretch of night. Hey, she murmured, voice soft as hay chaff. Lost time's just ground we've covered, can't unplow it, but we can seed new rows. Her eyes met mine, steady, and the tears eased, the warmth of her palm chasing the chill. We sat like that a beat. Then I reached into my jacket pocket, pulling out a folded paper, edges worn from carrying. I kept these, I said, unfolding it, careful. The ink faded but clear. Short notes from years back, slipped into my mailbox after chance meetings. Saw you at the market. Thought of the way you smile when no one's watching. Very simple words, but they'd burned in my pocket like coals, read in secret by lamplight. Riley's breath caught, her fingers brushing the page as I passed it over. I wrote them on scraps from the feed store, never sent half. Afraid the mailman would piece it together, or worse, Ma finding them in the trash. We traded them then, small secrets spilling like beans from a split sack. Her hidden sketch of us by the river, drawn from memory. My pressed wildflower from that fair day, tucked in a Bible like contraband. But what if we mess it up again? I asked, fear rising sharp, like a burr catching boot heels. Repeat the hiding, the pulling back when eyes turn our way. I've seen it hollow folks out, turn them bitter as overgrazed pasture. Riley squeezed my arm, her grip firm, eyes unflinching. We trust this, she said, nodding to the space between us. Charged now. You and me. We've carried the weight alone too long. Together, it's lighter. I trust your steady hands, the way you face down storms. And you can trust mine, rough as they are from the rains. The affirmation settled, solid as bedrock under topsoil, easing the doubt. Silence fell then, comfortable, our breaths sinking in the quiet, hearts thudding in tandem like distant thunder fading. The couch held us close, knees locked, arms touching, the world outside forgotten in that shared hush. A dog's bark cut through from down the road, sharp and insistent, pulling us back to the night, pressing in, the present sharpening around us. The bark echoed once more, then faded into the drizzle's patter, leaving the room heavier, the air pressing close, like a held breath finally let go. I shifted on the couch, the cushions sticking to my skin, a restlessness building in my legs, coiling tight like a spring in the truck's suspension after a long haul. Energy hummed through me now, Not the quiet simmer of before, but something sharper, urging movement. I stood abrupt, crossing to the window, peering out at the blurred shapes of the yard, rain sheeting the glass in silver streaks. My hands clenched at my sides, fingers digging into palms, the vulnerability we'd shared twisting into something urgent. Alive. Footsteps sounded soft behind me, Riley rising, the floorboards sighing under her weight. She came close, not crowding, but near enough I felt the warmth rolling off her, cutting the chill from the window. Her hand landed gentle on my shoulder, fingers splaying over the muscle there, steady as reins on a skittish mare. The touch stopped me cold, the pacing urge dissolving under that pressure, warm through my shirt like sun-breaking clouds over frozen ground. "Hey," she said, voice low, breath brushing my ear. "You don't have to run circles. We're here." Her thumb pressed a slow circle, easing the knot I hadn't named, and I turned slow, facing her in the dim, our shadows merging on the wall like roots twisting underground. Our eyes locked, the green in hers catching the lamp's glow, pulling me in deeper than the fair's crowds or fence-line talks ever had. The words rose unbidden, rough as burrs in wool, but true. "I've wanted you," I said, admitting it aloud for the first time, the confession hanging thick between us, tasting like dust, cleared after a windstorm. Not just in dreams or stolen glances. Wanted your hands on me, your mouth, the way you'd look at me without hiding. It's been there, burning low, every time we brushed close. Riley's breath hitched, her hand sliding from shoulder to arm, grip tightening just enough to ground, her face inches away now, lips parting on a quiet exhale. She didn't pull back, didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped closer, closing the gap until our breaths mingled, warm and ragged in the dim light spilling from the corner lamp, casting her features in soft gold. The scent of her, soap and rain-damp earth, filled my lungs, steadying the spin in my chest. Her free hand rose hesitant, cupping my jaw, thumb tracing the line there, rough callus catching my skin like a promise etched in. I leaned into it, eyes half closing, the world blurring to the heat of her palm, the faint tremor in her fingers mirroring mine. Time stretched, the rain's rhythm syncing with our pulses, thunder grumbling distant like a warning ignored. Then her lips met mine, tentative at first, a brush soft as new grass underfoot, testing the ground. The world narrowed to that point, the couch and window and night outside fading to nothing, just her mouth warm and yielding, tasting of tea and unspoken years. My hands found her waist, fingers bunching the flannel, pulling her flush, the kiss deepening slow, tongues touching like sparks on dry tinder. Heat bloomed low in my belly, spreading like fire through stubble fields, urgent but held, savoring the give of her body against mine. We pulled back a fraction, breaths coming quick, foreheads resting together, eyes scanning each other's faces, in the hush. Hers searched mine, wide and searching, or doubt, the flecks of green sharp as new leaves. "This," I whispered, voice cracking like frost on a windshield. "You sure?" Riley's gaze held steady, unflinching, a small nod tilting her head. Been sure longer than I let on. No shadows of retreat there, just raw want mirroring my own, the fear flickering but dim. Whispers of consequences tugged at the edges, Mark's temper flaring if word slipped, the town's eyes narrowing come Sunday service, family lines drawn like barbed wire, but longing one crashing over the doubts like a river in spring thaw, unstoppable. Her hands slid under my shirt, palms rough and warm on my skin, tracing ribs and spine, pulling me back in. The kiss reignited, hungrier now, teeth grazing, breaths shared in gasps. I tugged at her flannel buttons, fumbling but sure, fabric parting to reveal the curve of her collarbone, the rise of her chest under a thin tank, freckles scattered like stars over canyon rims. Layer by layer, clothes shed slow, deliberate, my shirt peeled away, cool air raising goose flesh that her mouth chased with heat, lips mapping shoulder and neck. Her jeans hit the floor with a soft thud, mine following, kicked aside in the tangle of limbs. We moved to the rug, Thick weave under knees, her guiding me down, bodies aligning in the dim, skin to skin. The contrast of calloused hands and soft curves, electric. My fingers explored her, tracing hip and thigh, the dip of waist, learning the map of her like trails worn through familiar hills. She arched under my touch, a low sound escaping, raw as wind through cottonwoods, her hands mirroring, bold over breasts and belly, igniting trails of fire. Bodies connected then, a slide slow and sure, filling the ache that years of hiding had carved. Tenderness mixed with urgency, hips rocking in rhythm like waves on a hidden shore, breaths sinking ragged, sweat slicking skin in the lamp's glow. Her nails dug light into my back, grounding as I moved with her. The world reduced to friction and heat, the rain outside a counterpoint to our gasps. "I've got you," she whispered amid the rise, voice breaking on the words, reassurance threading through the passion like roots holding soil. "Let go." And I did, tension coiling tight, then shattering, her name on my lips like a prayer finally voiced, bodies trembling in release, tangled close in the aftershocks. We lay there, breaths slowing, her head on my chest, fingers tracing idle patterns on my arm, the rug's weave imprinting our skin. The storm outside had passed, leaving drip-drip from the eaves, the air cooler now, scented with us and rain-soaked earth. But as the haze cleared, reality crept in, sobering, the weight of dawn pressing like dew heavy on grass. We lay, tangled on the rug, limbs heavy and slick, the afterglow wrapping us like a worn blanket pulled from the linen closet on a chill evening. Her breath feathered my neck, steady now, slowing from the ragged gasps that had filled the room just moments before. My fingers traced lazy circles on her back, over the faint ridges of old scars from fence wire or falls from horses, marks of a life spent wrestling the land. But as the haze lifted, doubt slithered in, cold as creek water seeping through boot seams. The rug itched under my shoulder, a reminder that this floor wasn't a bed, wasn't a place to linger till morning. What now? The night had cracked us open, but dawn would demand answers. And this house, this town, didn't bend easy to secrets laid bare. I shifted, propping on an elbow, her head sliding to the cushion of my arm. The lamp still burned low, casting our shadows long across the walls, twisted like branches in a winter wind. "Morning's coming," I murmured, voice rough from whispers and cries. "What do we do when the sun hits? I can't just stay hidden in your spare room forever. Mark'll notice I'm gone by breakfast, start calling around, the diner, the co-op, folks who owe him favors. And if he tracks me here..." The words trailed, heavy as mud on tires, the logistics piling up like storm clouds banking over the ridges. Where would I sleep tomorrow? The apartment above the feed store was a pipe dream without cash, and couch surfing through cousins would raise flags faster than a fence post snapping in a gale. Riley stirred, her eyes opening, slow. The green dulled now with the weight of what we'd done. She sat up partial, pulling the discarded flannel over her shoulders like armor, the fabric draping loose over her chest. "I know," she said, fingers combing through her hair, tangling in the damp strands. "But it's not just the hiding. It's letting this out. I've kept everything locked down so long. Feelings, wants, even the farm's rough patches from Ma and the bank. Opening up like this, it feels like stripping the barn doors off in a blizzard. Exposed. What if I can't shut it back? What if you see the cracks and walk?" Her voice cracked on the last vulnerability, raw as fresh plowed earth, and I saw the fear there, not just of the town but of me pulling away, leaving her hollowed out in the quiet after. We sat like that, the air cooling around us, goose flesh rising where her warmth had been. "An open thing between us," I said, testing the words. "In this circle, it's like planting roses in a briar patch. The church quilt group, the Friday night card tables at the hall, they'll sniff it out. Whispers start small. Saw them together too much. Then snowball into stares at the pump, invitations drying up like creek beds in August. My brothers'll haul me back, say it's a phase, or worse, drag Mark into it for the family good, and you, your land, the respect you've scraped together running this place solo. One wrong look, and it's gone. Turned to pity or scorn. The risks stacked, tangible as the stack of unpaid bills I'd left on the kitchen table back home, each one a threat to the fragile thing we'd just claimed. Riley's jaw tightened, her hand dropping to the rug, fingers digging into the weave like roots seeking hold. Practicality, she shot back, tone sharpening like a knife on whetstone. That's what keeps us alive out here. Heart's fine for stolen nights, but day breaks, and we need a plan. You think I haven't weighed this? Every time I looked at you too long, I mapped the fallout. The farm auctioned if word hits the lender wrong, Ma's heart giving out from the shame. We can't just chase feelings like colts in a pasture. We harness them, or they throw us. Her words stung, practical cutting through the tenderness like barbed wire through soft earth, and heat rose in my chest, frustration coiling tight. No, I pushed back, sitting up full now, the flannel slipping from her shoulders unnoticed. Harnessing it, that's what choked me with Mark. Folding once into neat rows, ignoring the wild parts that make you alive. This isn't some chore to schedule around. It's us, finally seeing each other clear. If we plan it to death, it'll wither before it roots. My voice rose, echoing sharp in the room, the argument flaring hot and sudden, like dry grass catching spark. She met my fire, eyes flashing, leaning forward till our faces were close, breaths clashing in the space between. And if we don't plan, it burns us both, she countered, hand gesturing wide, encompassing the house, the dark beyond the windows. You want wild? Fine. But wild gets you run out, alone with nothing but dust in your pockets. I've seen it. Friends who chased heart and ended up ghosts, drifting county to county. Thunder cracked outside then, close and vicious, rattling the panes like fists on a door. Rain lashed the roof, a roar that drowned our words, mirroring the turmoil churning inside, storm winds whipping doubts into frenzy. Lightning forked bright through the curtains, illuminating her face, tight lines around her mouth, brows furrowed deep as ruts in a muddy road. The tempest matched us, inner gales clashing, the reaffirmation we'd whispered in passion cracking under the strain. I want this, I said, reaching for her hand, but she pulled back slight, the gap widening like a fence gate swinging loose. You, us, but not caged. She nodded, reluctant, eyes softening a fraction, but the cracks showed, hesitation lingering in her posture, the way her shoulders hunched against the next bolt of thunder. Me too, she admitted, voice quieter now, thunder rumbling echo. But we can't ignore the fence lines. Not yet. I fumbled for my jeans on the floor, the denim cold against my skin, and fished out my phone from the pocket, screen lighting my face in blue pallor. No messages, no calls from Mark, no frantic texts from Ma wondering where I'd lit out to. The silence mocked, empty as an abandoned corral, but relief, mixed with dread, what storm brewed there waiting to break. Riley watched, her flannel clutched tight, the rain pounding steady now, a drumbeat underscoring the quiet between us. We play it smart, she suggested, voice steadying like reining in after a buck. You stay a few days, say you're helping with the calving season. Folks buy that. It's busy work. I'll talk to the realtor quiet-like about that back room in town. Cash under table if need be. We meet off-road, the old logging trails, keep the truck lights off like tonight. Discretion's our crop this season. Nurture it right, and it yields. The plan settled, practical threads weaving through the heat of our clash, easing the knot in my throat. Thunder grumbled, fainter now, rolling away like retreating cattle. I set the phone down, reaching for her again, and this time she met me halfway, our bodies folding weary into embrace, heads resting on shoulders damp from rain-sent air, leaking through cracks. Her arms wrapped solid, chin tucked over my collarbone, the tension uncoiling slow, like rope, after a long pull. We held there, breaths sinking ragged to even, the storm outside mirroring the one we'd weathered, leaving us bruised but bound tighter in the hush. Dawn's first gray light filtered through the curtains, pale as milk on stone, forcing the weight of decisions closer, the night yielding to the day we'd have to face. Dawn crept in slow, the gray light bleeding through the curtains like watered-down coffee spilling over the rim of a mug. We stayed tangled on the rug a while longer, then shifted to the window seat, bodies pressed close, my back against the sill, Riley's head on my shoulder. Her hand found mine, fingers lacing tight, palms rough with calluses that scraped just enough to ground me. Outside, the sky lightened to pink streaks over the ridges, the rain's remnants dripping from the eaves in steady plinks, turning the yard to mud that gleamed wet and fresh. We watched the sun edge up, a thin gold line breaking the horizon, painting the barn roof in warm hues. Her thumb traced circles on my knuckle, syncing with the rise in my chest, the quiet holding us like a shared breath after a long ride. "I need to end it proper," I said finally, voice low, the words settling heavy as dew on fence wire. "File those papers, talk to a lawyer in the county seat, quiet, no fanfare. Tell Mark face to face, get my things from the house when he's at the mill. No dragging it out, no half measures that let him think he can pull me back." The decision solidified in the light, sharp as the first cut of a scythe, through hay, cutting ties I'd knotted too tight. Riley squeezed my hand, her grip steady, eyes fixed on the sunrise, but mind with me. "One step at a time," she murmured. "I'll drive you if you want. Park a ways off, wait with the engine running, or just sit here after, if words run dry." Her support wrapped around me then, practical as baling twine holding a load steady, emotional as the way her shoulder fit against mine, warm through the chill of morning air seeping under the sash. "You've got the spare room as long as it takes," she added, turning to face me, green eyes clear in the growing light. "And if the bank's tight, I can spot you for the lawyer. Nothing big, just enough to start. Emotionally, I'm here. For the nights when it hits hard, the doubts creeping like weeds after a wet spring. We talk it through, like last night, no holding back." I nodded, the offer easing the knot in my gut, her presence a buffer against the wind that'd whip up once word spread. We lingered there, hands clasped, visions spilling out, soft between us. "Future like this," I said, nodding to the window, the sun climbing higher now, gilding the wet grass. "Visits at first, me slipping over after dark, lights off like tonight, building slow, brick by fence post. Coffee on the porch come fall, watching leaves turn without scanning the road. Maybe a trip out, weekends in some nowhere town where no one knows our names, just us and open miles." Riley smiled faint, her free hand resting on my knee, thumb brushing denim. "Yeah, slow rides on the back trails, picnics by the creek where the water runs clear and cold. We take it easy, no rushing the roots, let 'em spread natural, deep enough to weather the dry spells. A life pieced together, visits, turning to stays, until the town's edges blur and it's just ours." The words painted it real, tangible as the steam rising from our mugs later when we moved to the kitchen, feet patting soft on the cool floor. She pulled eggs from the fridge, cracked them into a skillet with a sizzle that cut the quiet, bacon following with pops and spits. I grabbed bread from the counter, toasting slices over the flame, the smell filling the room like a promise of normalcy amid the wreck. Laughter bubbled up unexpected then, over the way the bacon curled too crisp, Riley flipping it with a curse under her breath. "Like my first try at biscuits," I said, grinning despite the ache. "Turned 'em to rocks, fed 'em to the chickens, who pecked once and walked off." She chuckled, low and warm, handing me a plate, our fingers brushing deliberate now, the sound easing the night's edges, lightening the load like sun burning off fog. But as we ate, forks scraping plates, the bittersweet hit, sharp as cider gone off. "Last night," I said, setting my fork down, "it cracked everything open, didn't it? The good ache of finally touching what's true, mixed with the sting of knowing it's not simple. We got this far, but the road ahead's rutted, full of spots where we might stumble." Riley nodded, her eyes meeting mine over the table, steam curling between us. "Bittersweet's the taste of real things out here. Sweet from the connection, bitter from the fight to keep it. But worth it, like harvesting after a hard season. Sore hands, but the yield feeds you through winter. Breakfast done, I rose to pack the loose ends, folding clothes back into the bag with care, the divorce papers peeking out like a flag staked in new ground. Lingering touches came natural, her hand on my hip as I zipped the bag, my fingers trailing her arm when I passed for the sink. Each one stretched time, reluctant to let go, warm imprints fading slow. We washed dishes side by side, water running hot, suds foaming white, her shoulder bumping mine playful, a quiet rhythm, building the strength between us. The talk turned deep then, final words on self-acceptance, standing at the counter, drying hands on a towel worn thin. Accepting this in me, I said, folding the cloth deliberate. It's like claiming the wild parts of the land, the thickets you let grow instead of clearing every inch. I've spent years trimming myself to fit, but now I see the beauty in the untamed, the way it bends but doesn't break. Riley leaned against the sink, arms crossed loose, watching me close. Same. Vulnerability's the soil it grows in. Raw, exposed, but fertile. We share that now. Your cracks and mine fitting like puzzle pieces from the same storm-felled tree. It makes us stronger, not fragile. Strength bloomed there. Mutual. Solid as the beams holding the roof. Our vulnerabilities twining like vines over a trellis, holding each other up. Lingering fears resolved in nods and touches. Mark's shadow shrinking in the daylight. The town's gaze a hurdle, not a wall. We'll face it, she said, pulling me close one last time, foreheads touching. Together in pieces. I breathed her in, the resolve settling deep, fears ebbing like tide, pulling back from shore. We moved to the door then, bag in hand, the moment of goodbye hanging heavy. Porch light still faint against the morning glow. I stepped toward the pickup, bag slung over my shoulder, the gravel shifting soft under my boots like a reluctant farewell. The sun crested higher now, warming the air, turning dew to steam rising from the grass. At the door of the truck, I turned for one last look. Riley stood on the porch, arms loose at her sides, waving slow, her eyes holding mine with a promise deeper than words. More nights like this, more steps into the light. I climbed in, engine rumbling to life, and drove away. The road curving gentle as the sun rose full, my heart, full yet aching, pulled between what I'd left and what waited ahead. That night changed everything, yet nothing at once. The drive home blurred past fields waking under the light, my hands tight on the wheel, replaying her touch, the way her breath had synced with mine in the quiet. Back at my place, the empty rooms echoed louder, Mark's chair vacant, but the papers waited on the table, ready for the fight ahead. Riley's texts came later. Simple words, steady as her hand. Thinking of you. Ground holds. It did, fragile but real, a root taking in rocky soil. The world felt bigger that morning. The ridges, not walls, but paths winding toward something shared. We'd build it slow. Visits turning to days, secrets traded for open looks. The town's eyes a hurdle we'd leap together. No grand escapes. Just this. Two women claiming space in a place that tried to box us in. The ache lingered, bittersweet as the first. Harvest after drought, yield hard-won but nourishing. If this quiet truth resonates, the pull of hidden wants finally voiced in the dead of night, share your story below. What kept you silent? And what broke the hush? Don't forget to subscribe for more tales of finding connection in unexpected places, where vulnerability roots deep and love bends but doesn't break.